Hey guys, Claire here, and in today's video, we're going to talk about all things Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry's Travalyst will be a part of the second annual Sustainability Week in Africa this October. The company will be represented by the COO, Julie Cheatham. I feel like out of all of the initiatives from Prince Harry, Travalyst doesn't really seem to get a lot of press, which I feel is a little bit unfortunate. And for those of you who don't know, the Duke founded Travalyst in 2019. Now, in a recent video, we talked about the findings from the Charity Commission as it relates to Sentebale. Now, in the discussion, we touched on this article from the Times insisting that the Sentebale charity is being bled dry by its current management. Now, of course, the current management responded saying that that's not true. They're expecting money from donors and, of course, put the blame squarely on Prince Harry. There is a follow-up article to that from the Times that has dived even deeper to just how bad the finances have been and also sheds a light on the fact that the claims that they were doing quite well financially is just not true. There's no evidence to back that up, as far as anyone can see so far. Now, this article from the Times is entitled Prince Harry's Charity Lays Off London Staff Amid Funding Crisis. Now, according to the Times, the charity has laid off 4 of its 5 London staff, including its global head of finance and compliance. Let me say that one more time. It's laid off 4 out of its 5 staff members in London. And one of those people included the global head of finance and compliance. And that's on top of the other redundancies in its African teams. In brief synopsis, it says the problems began when the board challenged Sophie over a £400,000 bill for consultants, which they said brought little in return. She was asked to step down, and of course we know she complained to the Charity Commission, alleging bullying, misogyny, and racism. In March, the entire trustees resigned en masse, blaming Sophie's almost dictatorial style, and of course the founding princes stepped down in support of the board of trustees. Former staff members of Sentebale, so not just the board of trustees or the former board of trustees, but actual former staff members at Sentebale across its bases in the UK, in Botswana, and Lesotho, appear to remain loyal to the Duke. The article goes on to say that while the charity has claimed in public that its donors remain steadfast, a redundancy letter from April seen by the Times reveals that Sentebale has told the staff that it does not have funding and the charity is in retrenchment. So that's in direct contrast to what Sentebale claimed not even a week or 2 weeks ago. They're saying one thing publicly, but the information given to staff members, or now former staff members, is that they just don't have the money. So a recent fundraiser fell short of expectations, with legacy donors citing the chairwoman's continuing involvement in the charity as their reason for withdrawing support. Last week, we remember the Times reported that the Children's Center in Lesotho, which hosted about 700 children per year at that educational camp, has been effectively mothballed. So again, I ask you, why is she still here? What is her motivation? What is her end game? It doesn't make sense unless her whole thing is to do what she's doing now, essentially run it into the mud. No one, and I mean no one, is winning the longer it continues to go further. Staff have been told to work from home to save money, and the charity is said to have run down much of its £1.4 million buildup over 2 decades. Now, a former staff member of Sentebale says that they believe that she has run the organization into the ground and that her initial request of a £2,200 day rate as chairwoman had infuriated staff members. Another thing that I found interesting is that the charity, or Sophie and friends, insist that they were unable to raise funds because they were being targeted, not the fact that the key donors have insisted that as long as she is the chair, that they're not going to offer support. So how do you come into a charity, completely alienate all of the board of trustees, alienate the founders and patrons, and you think that the people, the grassroots who also support the charity, they're not going to offer support. They're not going to get the money from any of these people. And the way that she's decided to fight this battle further alienates anyone who's interested in providing funds. So, what a mess. I don't know if things continue along that way. Like, is there even going to be a Sentebale by the end of this year? But the way it's going, probably not. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but when the ruling came down for Prince Harry's case against the Home Office for security, I remember there was an interview that Tina Brown did. I don't care for her, but one of the things that she said was, of course, the Home Office is not going to go against the wishes of the palace. And it sort of reminded me of this new article from The Guardian, which basically talks about over 46,000 public bodies refused the portrait of King Charles. Now, these public bodies sort of includes things like town halls and hospitals, things of that nature. 46 or over 46,000 of these public bodies did not want Charles's portraits. Now, the key part of this story for me is the fact that the Cabinet Office really didn't want to give too much information about this. Now, according to the article, the Cabinet Office seems to be playing an active role in seeking to protect the reputation of the monarchy. They're clearly anxious about this kind of information being used to discredit and to further undermine the monarchy's public image. And that sort of ties into Prince Harry and his cases in the media and with the Home Office, is that, like Tina said, and I totally agree, that outcome was never ever going to be what Harry wanted it to be. Now, do I think he deserves the security? Of course, without question. Did I actually think that the Home Office would go against what the palace wants? No, they never will. Because Charles, he is the face of the monarchy. That's why you have institutions like the palace, like the press, like the government, who are collectively working together. And this is just another example of that.
When a narcissist uses money as a weapon, it's not just greed, it's control. It's about making you dependent. It's about punishing you when you don't obey. It's about keeping you trapped. And if you've been paying attention, you've seen exactly how this is played out with a certain family and Harry and Meghan. So what they did was they cut off Harry's security because he refused to play the game. They tried to also block his ability to earn money independently. They leaked stories to damage Meghan's reputation, making brand deals with her riskier. They also used the press as a financial weapon, poisoning the well for future work. This isn't random cruelty. This is tactical. This is about control of access, income sabotage, forced dependency, punitive withholding. It's textbook financial abuse. And why? Because if they can't control you, they'll try to destroy your stability. So they can point and say, look, they are not surviving without us. But here's the twist. Harry and Meghan flipped the script. They found new income streams. They built global deals, and they refused to let financial abuse become their cage. And for that, they are angry at them, and they will never ever forgive them, because that is one thing that abusers cannot forgive: your freedom.
Now, according to The Guardian, a multi-million-pound scheme offering free portraits of King Charles to public bodies has a very low take-up. The scheme was meant to celebrate the beginning of the King's reign by sending a free portrait to be displayed in any town hall, university, hospital or job centre. But the government admitted that more than 46,000 institutions showed no interest at all. Now, let's have a look at the portrait they could receive. It's over there. It's rather dashing. In many of those public buildings, there always was a portrait of the late Queen.
Exactly.
So, do you think public buildings should, like in other countries where there is a monarch, portray or have a portrait of the King?
Yes, if they're public bodies, I do think that. I find this actually rather sad because, as you rightly say, there was a portrait of the Queen in just about every public building in the land. And indeed, if you watch old television things, you'll see a portrait of the Queen on the walls in the background. Yeah. And perfectly normal. We all took it for granted. And, of course, you get a change of reign after a mammothly long reign. Right. I mean, it's not just 5 years. A mammothly long reign, you get a change of reign, and the portrait is free, and you would think that...
Yeah, I wonder what it says very, very quickly to you. We've got to move on to another story, Zach, but do you think this is evidence of people perhaps not exactly being as pro-royal family as they were with the late Queen?
I think that's exactly right. I think there was a lot of love and respect for Queen Elizabeth, whether you're a monarchist or not, for the amount of time she served, but I think it's probably time to have new conversations about whether we should have an unelected head.
Well, 46,000 people have said no to the portrait.
Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I feel like for the past few months, there have been like a little trickles of negative stories about William. Remember those stories about Charles with Highgrove and the Gardeners, and now there's a book about Andrew. Now, of course, Harry and Meghan is still numero uno when it comes to the target of the British press. But I have noticed a trickle of negative stories that we haven't seen in a while. Past few years, the British press has insisted on sort of putting them up on a pedestal and ignoring Andrew for the most part. The latest book that's coming out about Andrew and Fergie and all of that, they tried to insert Harry into the mix and he quickly shut that down. One of the interesting conversations that I've heard by the author is talking about Queen Elizabeth's involvement in sort of cleaning up the mess for Andrew. We know she's done this. And I've always maintained that she could have done more to protect Harry and Meghan and the children. She went out of her way to make sure that she took care of Andrew, paid that undisclosed sum of money to his accuser. I do find it interesting that there are more people who are willing to put out unsavory pieces about members of the
A lot of people said that at the time, the Queen, the late Queen, who was universally beloved, regardless of whether you were a royalist or not, couldn't have really known the full details of what Prince Andrew was accused of and some of his behaviour, the worst behaviour and the excesses we talked about before. I wonder, there were aspects of the book that you might have been surprised by. Was the level of the Queen's knowledge, the late Queen's knowledge, something that did shock you a little bit?
It did. It shocked me enormously. It's not what I expected. We'd always assumed she'd put the monarchy ahead of her family. And I assumed to start with that she was just putting her head in the sand, an old woman didn't really want to know. But it became increasingly clear that reports were made to her about her son by senior diplomats, by politicians, and she ignored them. In fact, I have a story from intelligence sources of complaints about him basically taking bribes. And this was reported to the Queen, and she didn't want to know.
That is a huge story.
It is shocking because it's not the behaviour we expected of her or indeed anyone in that position. But this is what she did. I mean, every time he was quoted in some new scandal, she'd give him a new honour, or she would, show her support by asking him to walk her to her seat or sit beside him in the car.
So sort of royal washing in terms of sort of reputation changing the story in some way. But there's also some suggestion that he, as you call it, a blind spot, some people call it the favourite son syndrome.
Your reminder that the royal family threw Meghan Sussex under the bus with the British press as often as they could when they had an actual criminal in their ranks that they could have been throwing to the wolves. I dare you to tell me that anything that Meghan did was even a quarter of as bad as what this man has done his entire life. We've heard the stories. We know that he has a bunch of stuffed animals that he lines up around his bedroom and yells at the servants about if they're not in the correct place. And we know that Virginia Giuffre and him saw each other, met each other, knew each other. The royals went out of their way to try to ban this book, but let the press run all over Meghan Sussex instead. Don't ever forget who this man has over him, because it's not just this man, It's also other foreign dignitaries who pay him money for God knows what reason. All of that was more worthy of being covered up than Meghan Sussex being taken care of.
And since the Queen is no longer here, we've clearly seen that Charles and William are okay with the royal washing of Prince Andrew. I'm just surprised that the Jeremy Vine show would allow the author to come there and make these sort of statements. If you've watched the Jeremy Vine show for a while, the people who say things that are not like pro-monarchy are usually sort of quieted quite quickly.
After a torrid couple of weeks in the news, including a blistering book depicting him as a crazed buffoon, Prince Andrew has finally got the hump with speed bumps. Dozens of yellow and black safety obstacles have been installed across Windsor Great Park this summer, including one just yards from the front drive of Andrew's home at Royal Lodge. Now, how do we know Andrew has the hump? Well, and you'll have to excuse my language, but last week, while riding his horse around the 5,000-acre park, he spotted a workman hard at work installing a speed bump. Peering down from his high horse, the Duke said, "What the F are you doing now?" It's not the first time Andy has been less than diplomatic with his language. He was reported to the police in 2016 for crashing through a Windsor gate rather than drive a 1-mile detour. And a few years ago had a furious row with his female gardener, leaving her shaken and upset over wrongly cut trees. She now works elsewhere on the estate. While his former maid Charlotte Briggs revealed to The Sun that the royal swore at her over a pair of heavy drapes. She claimed he made her run up 4 flights of stairs to close curtains while he sat just yards away, and when she left a tiny gap in the curtains, he yelled, "Can't you do anything right?" The Duke of York has faced many obstacles in recent years. He has had a bumpy ride with that car crash Newsnight interview, being stripped of his royal roles in disgrace and forking out millions of pounds to Virginia Giuffre to prevent that abuse case going to trial.
So the press has all of these different examples and names of people who are bullied by Andrew. But he's not labeled as a bully. Meghan sends early morning emails. Heaven forbid.
What sort of a person sacks a guy for wearing a nylon tie? Well, the answer is Prince Andrew, and he's about to have a really bad week. Here are the 3 most bonkers things that are coming out in the biography, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. Let's put the silk tie to one side for a second and talk about another person that he got sacked for having a mole on the side of the face. He didn't like it, so got them removed to a different department. Another bonkers claim in this biography is what he does for love. So there's a story about when he had like this midlife crisis, started seeing a younger lady and went on a diet of prunes and soup for months and just became the worst person to be around.
I mean, certainly the person I talked to who knows him well says that he's not upset by the way his reputation has been trashed. He's just disappointed no longer to be on the balcony at Buckingham Palace. That's the thing that gave him his whole purpose in life. He's a man who's been searching for identity all his life. The royal family gave him some sort of status. He thinks he's been a victim. He denies. I mean, we saw how he made all sorts of rather bizarre lies when he was being interviewed at Newsnight. He's continued with those lies. He just can't accept reality.
What is it with these people in the balcony? I don't get it. Every year for Trooping, we always hear about the articles, oh, Harry and Meghan have been snubbed and Meghan's so upset because she just can't be on the balcony anymore. The balcony. The obsession with balconies, carriages, and popularity polls just makes absolutely no sense.
Your thoughts on the monarchy, I guess, is that principally down to the fact that this is a symbol of inequality?
Absolutely, and that's it. It's purely based on equality. I mean, we could do a referendum now as to whether or not we should keep the royal family. The bottom line is, how can you have an institution that is so wealthy when the rest of the country is so poor? And actually, how are they allowed not to comply with our laws, including our equality laws? That makes no sense.
If they think that they've ruined Harry and Meghan's lives, then why aren't they smiling? Because if you really believed that your enemies were miserable and broke and regretting everything, wouldn't you just relax? Wouldn't you just move on with your life? But no, the noise keeps coming. The leaks, the sources close to the palace, the endless headlines, the sudden documentaries and photo ops, which makes you wonder if Harry and Meghan were truly unhappy, if they were truly unhappy, wouldn't the others be busy living their best lives instead of pushing these old tired stories? See, here's the thing about obsession that I don't understand. It's not born from confidence, it's actually born from fear. And this level of fixation is absolutely given fear, because it's fear that Harry and Meghan are actually thriving. It's fear that the Sussexes have actually built a life that is so free, so unbothered, and so self-made that it undermines every royal fairy tale. And maybe, just maybe, poor Harry and Meghan stories aren't truths at all, but carefully crafted PR meant to sell us a particular narrative. Because if your story cannot stand on its own, you have to control somebody else's. That is pathetic. So here we are. The haters are working overtime, the palace is still concerned, and the tabloids are still being refreshed. They're still refreshing their draft folders every hour. And Harry and Meghan, they're still booked, they're still busy, and they are still living their best lives. And it's funny how happiness, true happiness, and true joy has a way of exposing who's really losing.
Can y'all believe it was just 5 years ago when the Duchess of Sussex was literally smothered in the UK? Her and Harry, little Archie, was literally on the run, surviving headlines, pressure, and betrayal. I bet back then, in the moment, she probably couldn't even imagine where she is today. But here's the thing, she was dreaming of being on the other side. She knew deep down what she wanted to build, she could not do in that environment. That's why they had to leave. First, they had to run to Canada, but I can only imagine the sigh of relief she felt to be back on American soil, where she felt safe, her home place, where she could build and also breathe. And look at her now. She created her dream brand as ever, and she is literally at peace. And that's the message. When you're sitting in your dreams, block out the noise. You have to focus forward and not on the chaos that's surrounding you. You always have to focus on what will go right instead of what could go wrong. We all got to look at what the Duchess of Sussex did and be inspired by it. Like, that's how you go from survival mode to dreams. It does not matter where you start, but you got to start. But one thing you always got to remember, circumstance does not define you, but vision does.
You're absolutely right. It's crazy, the mental gymnastics that Kenzie Schofield has to go through each and every day just to find something negative to say about Meghan. It's like she creates these talking points and these narratives in her head, and then she goes from one British show to another British show to another British show, and she puts these talking points together, and she tells them these are the talking points I'm going to go through. Because I see her on the main show with the guy with the funny glasses, and she talks about it, and then she forms these one or two talking points with him. Then she goes to the Jeremy Kyle show, and then she more definitively pushes the talking points that she formulated with the other guy. And then, like this video, she basically gave them the talking points for them to push it back on her so she can talk about it as if this is something that everybody is saying. You can see what she's doing as you see clips of her responding to it. And it's crazy. All of this because she is demonstrably jealous that Meghan got an opportunity to date Harry and she never did. She made an excuse about why her face is superimposed on Meghan's body on one of their engagement pictures. She wanted to make it seem like someone else did it, when her actions over the past, 7 years now, have proven more than anything that she is just super jealous of Meghan and is trying to do whatever she can to put her in a bad light. It's not working, but I mean, Karens are gonna Karen.
You're telling me you were valeting and you valeted Prince Harry's car?
We didn't valet his car because he had his own car with his crew, but he came through and like introduced them.
Was Meghan with him?
No.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
No, that's starstruck.
I would be starstruck if she was.
Bro, what?
Who's Meghan and Prince Harry?
Bro, what do you mean? The Duchess of Sussex, bro.
What? The Duchess? What's the
Duchess of Sussex?
Bro. Did you watch Suits?
No.
Oh my god.
Did you
watch Suits?
Yes.
You know about
Bro, I fell in love with her in Suits.
Yeah.
Before I knew she was a freaking
Same.
princess.
Yeah, no, she was not there. If
Meghan
she
Markle?
was, I would have really freaked out.
Bro, when I was...
Oh, I'm okay. Well, what's so special about him?
He's the prince of freaking...
the UK.
He's the prince of UK?
You know Princess Diana?
Nope.
Oh, no, stop.
No, your mom knows who
Please,
she is.
stop.
Princess Diana.
She's cute.
How do you not know How do you not know who Princess Diana is, bro?
Bro, I don't know.
Do you know the Queen of England?
About the trash.
I mean,
the trash. In the middle.
Didn't she die?
Yes.
Yeah.
God have mercy upon us.
Don't think you have a brand. I don't think you have anything to show.
I worked in the White House. Get a grip. You just. The truth is, 10 years later, I'm still sitting here. 10 years later, I want to see you here still, this show, Bethany, a year from now. I hope so.
And with that, we've come to the conclusion of today's video. Wherever you guys are, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell.